So I want to share something with you. And it's something that I've watched happen so many times that I'm just not surprised by it anymore. So a podcaster will come to me for a strategy session and everything looks great on paper. And so she's consistent, her audience is engaged, the analytics are moving in the right direction. But when I listen to her recent episodes back to back, I can tell something's off. The earlier episodes have this quality that I can only describe as urgency. Like she had something she absolutely had to say. Now, the recent ones are technically correct. They're well structured. They're on topic. They don't have a lot of fluff to them, all the things, right? It's also a little flat. So I ask her this question. When was the last time you did something that filled you up, that brought you true joy? And usually at this point, they look at me like I just asked them a question in a foreign language. That's when I know exactly what's wrong. You see, it's not her strategy, and it's not her content, and it's not her title, or even her publishing schedule. It's she's been giving and giving with nothing coming back in, and the work is showing it. Hey friend, welcome back to Christian Podcasting Secrets. I'm your host, Tammy Munson, and today's topic is something that happens quite a lot. I have had this exact conversation with many podcasters over the years. And so today I want to talk about something that gets treated like a self-care strategy when actually it's a ministry strategy. And that's margin. Not as a reward for finishing something, not as a luxury for people with less on their plates than you, but as a non-negotiable part of how you sustain the work you were called to do. So are you ready? Okay, let's go. So here's what I think is happening for many podcasters right now. And that's you're doing the work, you're showing up, you're keeping the schedule even on the weeks you'd rather not. And something still feels off. The episodes are going out, but you're not sure that they're landing the way that they used to. And you can't quite name what's changed about it. That sound familiar? Yeah, I bet it does. And so here's kind of what I see from the coaching side of things when this is actually happening. You see, the content didn't get worse. It's just that the creator got emptier. And empty creators make content that sounds like content. They stop making episodes that sound like a person who has something urgent to say. Now, there is a verse in Mark that I keep coming back to whenever I think about this or I'm talking to a coaching client about it. And it's Mark chapter 1, verse 35. And it says, very early in the morning, while it was still dark, Jesus got up, left the house, and went off to a solitary place where he prayed. Now, so let's unpack this for a moment and what actually happened here. This was not after a slow season. This was not Jesus taking a break because things had finally died down and he had a moment. Because the verse right before this, Jesus had just healed Simon's mother-in-law. Then the whole town showed up at the door at sunset. He healed everyone who came. Mark says enough that the whole town was at the door. It was a full, working, producing, giving season. And in the middle of it, before the next day started, Jesus withdrew. You see, margin wasn't Jesus's reward for a good season. It was his practice during one, actually a busy one. So stay with me on this, because I think a lot of us have been taught, even if nobody ever said it out loud to you, that rest is what you earn after the work is done. You've been productive. Now you've earned the ability to rest. But the problem is, since the work is never done, the rest never comes. And neither does the margin that would make the work worth doing. Let me tell you about a client that I had last year. She was just so much fun. She was a great podcaster. She was consistent. She did her 2 episodes a month, never missed a week. Her audience was growing steadily, or good organic growth. On paper, Everything looked fantastic. But when we sat down to look at what was actually happening with her podcasts, her analytics, her episodes, we noticed that quality had shifted. The quality that I mentioned earlier, it had shifted. Her early episodes were amazing. They had that I have to tell you this energy that was almost tangible. But her recent episodes were competent. They were well organized. They were correctly structured, and they were completely missing one thing. Now, I asked her when she last had a week where she wasn't being productive. She wasn't working on her podcast or any of the other things that she was involved in. And she had to think about it for a good amount of time before she finally answered me. That was the answer to why it felt off. Because consistency without replenishment is not faithfulness. It's depletion with a publishing schedule. And depletion shows up in the work before you can even hear it yourself. So let's talk about what margin actually is in the context of your podcast. Because margin in podcasting is not necessarily taking a week off. I mean, sometimes it is, yes. But that's not the whole picture. And sometimes you just can't take a week off from your podcast. But what margin is the space between your capacity and your output. It's the difference between producing at 80% and producing at 110. When you have margin, you have room to notice things, room to read something that sparks an episode idea you weren't even thinking about or chasing. You can actually sit with a question long enough to have something real to say about it instead of just something that's timely. Room to let your listener experience land with you before you try to speak into it. When you have no margin, you have none of that. You have the next deadline and the episode that needs to be published and the outline that still needs to be written and the next few episode ideas that you're going to have. And you produce from that place and your listener can feel it even if they can't name it. Now, the truth is this. Your listener did not subscribe to your podcast to receive the depleted version of you. She subscribed for the version of you that had something important and urgent to say, not just content. Margin is how you protect her access to that person. Now, if you've been listening to this episode and quietly thinking, yeah, that's me. That's exactly where I am. I want you to do something with that. Every month, I open a small number of free 30-minute strategy calls. And I mean, there's only a few and they go fast. And then I don't reopen them until the following month. So what happens on that call? Well, we have a conversation about where your podcast is, what's kind of going on, what does your energy level look like, what does your schedule look like, all those things. And then I'll tell you exactly how I see it and what you should do next. It's not general advice. It's not a framework. It's what I would actually do if it were my podcast. 30 minutes for free. So if you've been waiting for someone just to tell you the truth about where you are and what to do next, it's the strategy call. So go to wildfirecreativeccompany.com/free strategy call and grab one before they're gone. I'll drop the link in the show notes for you. Okay, let's talk about what I actually want you to do. Now, it's just 3 steps. They're not concepts, they're actions. And each one of them is something that you can do this week. Okay, step 1, do a quick, honest audit of your last 4 weeks. Not your content calendar, your actual weeks. Was there replenishment? Where did it happen? Where did you read something, rest, sit in silence long enough to have a real thought that wasn't about, oh, I need to do this and this and this? If you're scanning back through those 4 weeks and coming up empty, that, my friend, is not a scheduling problem. That's a system that has no margin built into it. And that system is producing depleted content. Might not even realize it yet. Step 2, name one specific thing that actually fills your tank. Not what you think should fill it, but what actually does. What brings you joy? Maybe it's a walk. Maybe it's taking your kids to the pool. Maybe it's just going to Starbucks, sitting there in silence, enjoying a coffee. And before you try to schedule your replenishment into a 15-minute block between your 9 a.m. meeting and your podcast outline writing session, that's not what I'm talking about. I mean something that actually works. Like I said, for some people, it's long walks while listening to their favorite podcast. For some, it's a morning with no agenda, no screens, and silence. For some, it's sitting down with scripture before they sit with their outline. And it doesn't need to be long. It could be just as simple as 15 minutes to take time for something for you. Now, I'm not saying that you need to go to the spa or a haircut or a mani-pedi or any of that. Now, if that brings you true joy, by all means, go ahead and do it. And I'm not going to tell you what it should be for you. Only you can determine that. But I am going to tell you that if you don't name it, it won't happen. I'm living proof. It will just keep getting crowded out by everything that seems way more urgent. Step 3, build it into your schedule as a non-negotiable. It's not a bonus if everything gets done on time. It's part of your weekly schedule. It's part of your production process. So think of it this way. If your production process has no margin in it, the system is incomplete. The replenishment is not separate from the work. It's part of how the work gets made well. So treat it like it's your schedule, part of your production process, because it is. So your assignment this week is really simple. Look at your calendar over the last 4 weeks. Did you have margin? Put one thing on the schedule that is going to fill your tank, not after your recording session, not after the editing session, before. See, you don't have to take a week off. You don't even have to overhaul your whole entire schedule. You just have to make sure there's something in you before you try to give something to her, your listener. That's the whole assignment. One thing on your calendar, like it's your job, because it is. So thank you so much for listening to today's show. I'm so glad that you are here. And if this podcast has shown up for you in a season where it was something that you needed to hear, I want to ask you something. Would you take 30 seconds right now, after you're done listening to this podcast, and leave a rating on Apple Podcasts? Just tap 5 stars and write a quick little sentence. It doesn't need to be long. It doesn't need to be perfect. Just a quick sentence, because that helps other women find their way here. And that matters more to me than any analytic number ever will. And I read them all. So again, thank you so much for listening to today's show. Remember, you can love Jesus and analytics, and life is way too short for a boring podcast. I'll talk to you next week. Bye, y'all.